We hear more and more often that neuron can pump up the camera on our smartphones. Not just cameras, voice assistants. They already make their own music and paintings. Someone calls it all artificial intelligence, and then there's machine learning and deep learning. Confess, you don't fully grasp the difference either between these concepts, which is not the case at 21. So what are they really, and how do they differ from each other? And which of them is future Jarvis Alton or Skynet? We're going to lay it all out for you. Make yourself comfortable, as the driver with Valerie's poem is on. But before we go into the future, which undoubtedly awaits us, let's take a glimpse into the past. In the mid-20th century, when the first computers appeared for the first time in the history of mankind, the computing power of the machine became close to human. Therefore, the scientific community had a fair question: what is the scope of the possibilities of the computer, and whether there is a framework at all? Have the machines reached the level of development of human beings? It was just when the term artificial intelligence was born in 1943. In the year of the American scientist Raven McCulloch and Tirpitz Schaft in his article, Logical Calculus of Ideas Immanent in Nervous Activity, he introduced the concept of artificial neural networks simulating a real network of neurons, and the first model of an artificial neuron in 1958. American neurophysiologist Frank Rosenblatt proposed the scheme of the device mathematically modulating the process of human perception, called it perceptual, which actually became the prototype of today's neural networks, and a few years earlier, in 1950, the English scholar Alan Turing wrote an article with the high-profile title, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, in which he described the procedure with which can be used to determine the moment when the car is leveled in terms of reasonableness with man. This procedure today is called the Turing test, about which we talked about in this video. But let's go back to the beginning of our narrative and answer the question of what is the definition of artificial intelligence. There are a lot of new and different concepts of this concept, but all of them in one. Artificial intelligence is such an artificially created system which is capable of simulating intellectual and creative human activity. Intellectual activity is not just mathematical calculations. These activities are aimed at creating intangible things in science and art and literature, as well as in other creative spheres of learning, to accept decisions, definition of conclusions, and much other. Of course, a normal computer is not capable of writing a picture of music, a book. This requires intelligence, and in our case, artificial intelligence. But what may be modern artificial intellects? How to evaluate its intellectual capacity? To understand the artificial intelligence system, it can be divided into three groups: the first, weak or limited artificial intelligence, 2, general artificial intelligence, and a third, strong or superintelligent artificial intelligence. Let's deal with everyone in order. Artificial intelligence is considered weak when the machine can only cope with a limited set of individual tasks. A better person at this particular stage is that artificial intelligence that you and I encounter on a daily basis. There are many examples of this, and in computer games, enemies are getting smarter constantly. Think of the same bosses in the Souls games and in everyday life, responding to emails in Gmail. Exactly, artificial intelligence offers you answer choices. Yes, it's unlikely. A sophisticated intelligence is capable of enslaving mankind, and yet in some ways, he can surpass the man. To artificial intelligence is such an artificially created system which is capable of simulating intellectual and creative human activity. Intellectual activity is not just mathematical calculations. This activity is aimed at creating intangible things in science, art, literature, and other creative spheres of learning. To accept decisions, definition of conclusions, and much other. Of course, a normal computer is not capable of writing a picture of music, a book. This requires intelligence, and in our case, artificial intelligence. But what may modern artificial intellects do? How to evaluate their intellectual capacity? To understand the artificial intelligence system, it can be divided into three groups. The first is weak or limited artificial intelligence, the second is general artificial intelligence, and the third is strong or superintelligent artificial intelligence. Let's deal with everyone in order. Artificial intelligence is considered weak when the machine can only cope with a limited set of individual tasks. A better person at this particular stage is that artificial intelligence that you and I encounter on a daily basis. There are many examples of this, and in computer games, enemies are getting smarter constantly. Think of the same bosses in the Souls games, and in everyday life, responding to emails in Gmail. Exactly, artificial intelligence offers you answer choices. Yes, it's unlikely. Sophisticated intelligence is capable of the enslavement of mankind, and yet, in some ways, it can surpass the man. For example, back in 1997, the car Deep Blue from the company both managed to beat the world chess champion Garry Kasparov. The next stage of development of artificial intelligence is general and is when a computer can solve any intellectual task, as well as man. Imagine that the computer is capable of painting as well as Van Gogh, or having a heart-to-heart talk with you, creating songs hitting the world charts, negotiating with the boss for a promotion, or even creating a new scientific theory. The creation of the common and today aspire to scientists all over the world. And probably in the near future, we will be able to find out what it is and even meet him. You know that already now, Google Assistant can make reservations for you by communicating over the telephone. From the day of Sis Terem as a human being, or another example in 2016, self-learning Twitter bot Tay with proficient intelligence created by the company Microsoft in less than 24 hours, after I've learned how to swear and let go of Russian remarks, in connection with what was closed by its own creator. On the last Google I/O, we were shown the project Lendu, with which you can talk to, for example, the planet or the paper airplane. For the last one, of course, the same will be answered by a skilled intellect. Or what's so noteworthy is the notorious release in 2020 of the GPT-3 neural network from experienced OpenAI, who frankly, as far as I know, that my brain is not a sentient bridge, but it can make rational logical decisions. I learned everything I know just by reading the internet, and now I can write this column with words of art. Most recently, in the summer of 2021, the GPT-3-based Hugging Faces pilot light was created for the woes of Hop and Ipana. I represent from yourself and an assistant for autofill program code can be said to be the first step towards creating machines capable of breeding.